My mom tried to sabotage my wedding. How her drama almost ruined the day that was supposed to be perfect. What should have been the happiest day of my life quickly turned into a battlefield, all because of my mom's constant criticism and negativity. It was supposed to be one of the happiest times of my life. The excitement of planning a wedding, the joy of marrying the love of my life, and the anticipation of our future together. These were supposed to be the moments I looked forward to most. But instead, I found myself constantly caught in a whirlwind of stress, disappointment, and ultimately heartbreak. My fiancé, now husband, and I had been living in a small apartment in Chicago. We had a baby girl, and our lives were as busy as could be. We decided that we would get married at the courthouse on 7/26/24, a simple and cost-effective decision. We didn't have the luxury of a big, expensive wedding. The focus was on getting our lives together and saving money to move into a better place for our growing family. The plan was simple, straightforward, and that's what we thought would make it perfect. But after a month of planning, something changed. My fiancé's family especially. His mother was supportive and offered to help with a more traditional wedding at the church. It was something I had always dreamed of, though I never thought it was feasible. We knew that with some financial assistance from his side and contributions from both of us, we could make it work. The idea was simple: a church wedding, a beautiful ceremony, and the chance to have our grandparents, both of whom were 90 years old, and the last surviving members of their generations, attend and witness this special moment. For me, the church wedding was more than just a ceremony. It was a tribute to our families, to the values they had instilled in us, and to the memories we would create together. My grandmother, a talented seamstress, was overjoyed when I asked her to make my wedding dress. She had always wanted a granddaughter, and I was her first. She was ecstatic about the idea, and her love and excitement were infectious. My fiancé's grandfather was equally thrilled, and the thought of them being present on our wedding day meant the world to us both. But my mother didn't see it the same way. I had always hoped my mom would be as excited about my wedding as I was. I had dreamed of having her by my side, helping me with the planning, sharing, and the joy of the occasion. But when I told her about the change in plans, I was met with coldness. She immediately rejected the idea of a church wedding. She told me quite bluntly that we should be saving our money instead of spending it on a wedding. She reminded me that we lived in a tiny apartment and that we couldn't afford a big celebration. She even told me that some of our family members agreed with her. I tried to stay calm. I understood that money was tight, but I had already made up my mind. This was important to me. I asked my mom to help with one small thing, the wedding cake. I didn't want to ask for much, but I figured it was a reasonable request. She agreed, albeit reluctantly, and said she would take care of it. But that was the extent of her involvement. She didn't ask about my dress, didn't seem interested in anything I was planning, and barely spoke to me about the wedding at all. At the rehearsal, my mom's attitude became more apparent. She was clearly upset, and it was difficult for me to ignore the tension that filled the room. The whole time she seemed distant, barely speaking to me or anyone else. When I tried to tell her about some of the plans, she would go silent, offering no feedback or support. I couldn't understand why she was acting this way. My brother had passed away in 2015, and I was her only surviving child. I had always hoped that our bond would grow stronger as we navigated major life events together, but this was different. It felt as though she was deliberately distancing herself, making it harder for me to share this special moment with her. It was heartbreaking. I had always wanted my mom to be involved, to be excited for me. But instead, it felt as if she was trying to sabotage my happiness. As the days passed, her disapproval only intensified. She kept trying to convince me to cancel the church wedding, even up until the very day of the event. She asked me over and over to explain why I wanted a church wedding instead of something simpler. She couldn't understand why I would prioritize this over saving money, and it felt like she was trying to guilt me into backing down. I didn't want to argue with her, but the pressure was overwhelming. The day of the wedding arrived, and despite everything, I tried to focus on what was important: my fiancé, my family, and the beautiful moment we were about to share. My mom surprisingly appeared all smiles when we walked into the church. She even complimented me on my dress and said everything looked beautiful. But as the reception began and guests gathered around to admire our rings, I overheard something that made my stomach turn. "I wonder how much they spent on the rings," my mom whispered to my cousin, her voice filled with judgment. I was speechless. My cousin, who was standing right next to her, was looking at the bill, trying to figure out how much we had spent. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, after all the tension and disappointment, she was still focused on the cost of things. It was as if nothing had changed. As if the love and joy of the day didn't matter. As the reception continued, I tried my best to focus on the joy of the day. The love and excitement around us were enough to keep me going, but my mom's actions kept echoing in the back of my mind. It was hard to ignore the way she had behaved, the way she had tried to diminish something that meant so much to me. The evening wore on, and we moved from the reception to the after party. People were laughing, dancing, and celebrating. It was everything I had hoped for, except for the constant weight of my mother's disapproval hanging over me like a dark cloud. My fiancé, now my husband, noticed I was distant. He gently asked if I was okay, and I assured him I was fine. I didn't want to ruin the day for him, for us. But as much as I tried to push it out of my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been broken. The tension with my mom wasn't just a small issue anymore. It had become something bigger, something I couldn't ignore. Later in the evening, we were gathered around the cake, cutting slices and sharing in the joy of the moment. My mom came up to me, and for the first time all day, I thought maybe she was going to apologize. Maybe she had realized how hurtful her actions had been. But when she spoke, her words were anything but an apology. "I just want you to know that people are going to talk about you," she said, her tone flat and emotionless. I was taken aback. Was this her way of trying to make me feel guilty? Trying to make me feel as though I was in the wrong? I had already given up so much just to get to this point. The wedding I had dreamed of, the support I had hoped for. And now, instead of congratulating me or sharing in the joy, she was again focusing on the negative, on what people would say. Her words stung more than I could ever have imagined. I had been so excited for my wedding, so ready to share this monumental day with the people I loved most. But instead, my mom's presence felt more like a weight around my neck, a constant reminder of the tension that had been building between us for months. "I'm sorry you feel that way," she added, her voice colder now, as though she were offering the bare minimum of an apology. "But people are going to talk about you. That's just how it is." I wanted to scream to tell her how much her words hurt, how much her actions had affected me. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. This was supposed to be my day, and I refused to let her steal that from me. So instead of reacting, I just smiled, weakly nodded, and walked away. But inside, I was boiling. The hurt was deep, and it wasn't something I could easily shake off. My mom's lack of support, her constant attempts to undermine me, it was too much. And to make matters worse, her apology didn't feel like one at all. It felt like an excuse, a way for her to absolve herself without ever really taking responsibility for her actions. As the night wore on, I found myself growing more and more frustrated. My mom's presence had completely overshadowed what should have been one of the happiest days of my life. Instead of celebrating with me, she had made it about herself, about her opinions, about her judgment. And I couldn't stand it any longer. I tried to focus on the positive, my husband, my friends, the people who truly cared about me. But it was hard to ignore the feeling that something important had been broken between my mom and me. I had always hoped that our bond would remain strong, that she would be there for me, in the way a mother should. But now, as I looked back on the day, I realized that wasn't the case. In the days following the wedding, I tried to process everything that had happened. I tried to convince myself that it wasn't a big deal, that it was just one day, one moment in the grand scheme of things. But it wasn't just about the wedding. It was about the years of tension, the unspoken resentments and the hurt that had been building between my mom and me for as long as I could remember. It wasn't just the wedding that had hurt me. It was the way my mom had treated me, the way she had tried to diminish my happiness, and the way she had refused to be the supportive mother I had always hoped for. The wedding was supposed to be a symbol of new beginnings, of starting fresh, but instead it had become a reminder of the emotional distance that now existed between us. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to fix things with my mom. But I knew one thing for sure: things had changed, and they couldn't go back to the way they were. The hurt ran too deep, and the cracks in our relationship were too wide to ignore. The days following the wedding were filled with a mix of emotions. The joy of starting a new chapter with my husband, combined with the lingering hurt from my mom's actions, created an internal conflict I couldn't ignore. It was clear that something had shifted between us, but I didn't know how to approach it. Every time I thought about my mom, my heart would tighten with frustration and sadness. It wasn't just the wedding. Her refusal to support me had been a pattern for years. One afternoon, a week after the wedding, I couldn't take it any longer. My emotions had been bottled up for too long, and I knew that if I didn't confront my mom soon, I'd start resenting her even more. I had to face the hurt and hopefully find a way to heal it. I picked up the phone, my hands trembling slightly. I knew that what I was about to do was going to be difficult, but I also knew it was necessary. I called my mom, hoping that she'd be open to hearing me out, even if just for a moment. When she answered, her tone was surprisingly calm, as though nothing had happened. "Hello," she said. "Mom, we need to talk," I said, my voice more steady than I felt. "I've been thinking a lot about the wedding and everything that happened. I can't just pretend like everything is okay." There was a long pause on the other end of the line before she spoke. "What do you mean? I thought we were past all of that." "I can't move past it," I replied, the frustration bubbling up again. "The way you acted at my wedding, how you kept questioning why I wanted a church wedding, how you whispered about the rings, and how you just couldn't seem to be supportive. It really hurt, Mom. I needed you there with me, not trying to tear me down. I was just trying to help you save money." That's all she said defensively. "You're overreacting. People were going to talk anyway, and I was just trying to make sure you were being realistic." I let out a shaky breath. This wasn't the response I was hoping for, but it wasn't entirely unexpected. My mom had always had a tendency to act as though she knew what was best for me, even if it meant disregarding my feelings entirely. "I understand you were trying to help, but you went about it all wrong," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's not about the money. It's about the support. I wanted you to be excited for me to share in this moment. Instead, you made it about your own fears and judgments. You've done this before, Mom, and it's breaking me." There was silence on the other end of the line for a moment, and I almost thought she wasn't going to respond. But then she spoke, her voice quieter than usual. "I didn't realize you felt that way," she said, her tone softer now. "I just didn't want you to make a mistake. I didn't want you to get caught up in something that wasn't practical. I wanted you to focus on what really mattered. But what matters to me is my happiness, my dreams, and my family." I said, the tears I had been holding back finally starting to fall. "I wanted to create a special day, a memory with my husband and my grandparents. I wanted you to be there with me, supporting me, not questioning everything I was doing." Another long silence followed. I wasn't sure if she was processing what I had said or if she was just shutting down again. But then she spoke again, and this time her voice had a different tone. It wasn't as defensive, but there was still a hint of guilt. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't always know how to support you. I've been scared too. Scared of losing you, I guess. And I didn't know how to handle you moving on with your life." Her words caught me off guard. I hadn't expected that kind of vulnerability from her. For so long, my mom had been the one to call the shots, the one to dictate what was best for me. But in that moment, I saw her differently. She was scared too. Maybe her actions hadn't been about control or malice. Maybe they had been about her own insecurities and fears. I understand that I said, my voice softer now. But we can't keep living like this. We can't keep pushing each other away. I want us to be close, Mom. I need your support, not your judgment. I want to be there for you, she replied, her voice breaking slightly. I'm sorry I wasn't. I'll try to do better. And just like that, something in me shifted. It wasn't an immediate fix, but it was a start. My mom wasn't perfect, and neither was I. We had a long way to go, but this conversation felt like the first step in healing the rift between us. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe a little easier. I didn't know what the future would hold, but I knew that at least for now, I had taken the first step toward mending my relationship with my mom. We had a lot of work to do, but this conversation, this moment of vulnerability and understanding, gave me hope that we could rebuild what had been broken. The days after our conversation felt a little different, like there was a glimmer of hope where there had only been tension before. I wasn't expecting everything to change overnight, but I could feel a shift. My mom and I started texting more regularly, and she even asked to meet for lunch one afternoon. It wasn't the same as before, but it was progress. I remember that lunch, clearly sitting across from my mom at a small cafe, the sunlight streaming through the window, making everything feel almost serene. The conversation was a little awkward at first. There was a lot of silence between bites, the kind that comes with unspoken emotions lingering in the air. But we both knew that we were there to make amends, to fix what had been broken, even if it wasn't going to be an easy process. So how's married life treating you? She asked, looking at me with a soft smile, though I could still see the trace of uncertainty in her eyes. It's great, I said, feeling a warmth in my chest as I spoke. We're adjusting to the change, getting settled into our new life. We're planning to move soon, so things are moving forward. That's good, she replied, nodding. I know it's a big step, and I'm happy for you, really. The words sounded sincere, but the heaviness still lingered between us. It was like there was an unspoken understanding that we both had a lot of work to do to rebuild the trust that had been damaged over the past months. Mom, I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened, I said, taking a deep breath. About the wedding and how you acted. I don't want to dwell on it forever, but I also don't want us to pretend like it didn't hurt. I know, she said, her voice low. And I'm sorry. I've been reflecting on everything too. I shouldn't have acted the way I did. I should have supported you more, and I shouldn't have let my own fears cloud the moment. You deserve better than that. There was something about hearing her acknowledge her mistakes that made a huge difference. I had always wanted her to see things from my perspective, and for the first time I felt like she was truly listening. It didn't fix everything, but it was a big step forward, and I wasn't ready to just throw it all away because of the past. I know you were scared, Mom, I said, my voice trembling a little. But it hurt when you didn't trust me, when you didn't trust my decisions. I've been trying to make my own way, and I need you to support that. I don't need you to agree with everything I do, but I need you to be there for me. She nodded, looking down at her plate for a moment. I get that now. I didn't realize how much I was holding on to my own fears. How much I was holding on to my own way of thinking. I thought I was protecting you, but I wasn't. I was just pushing you away. We sat there for a while, letting the silence fill the space. But this time, it felt comfortable. There was an understanding between us now, an acknowledgement that the past couldn't be changed, but the future was still open. Before we parted ways that afternoon, my mom reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. I'm sorry for everything. I want to be there for you, and I want to be part of your life, even if I don't always understand everything you do. I just want you to know that I love you, and I want to do better. I love you too, Mom, I said, squeezing her hand, and I'm willing to move forward with you. I'm not perfect either, but I'm trying. I want us to heal. It wasn't a magical fix, but it was a start. That conversation marked the beginning of something new between us. It was like we had taken a step back and reassessed our relationship, realizing that we both had our flaws, but that we were willing to work through them. As I left the cafe that day, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. It wasn't going to be easy, and there would still be bumps along the way, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like my mom and I were on the same page. We weren't going to agree on everything, and that was okay, but we could support each other, and that was what truly mattered. The months after that lunch began to feel different. Though there were still occasional moments of tension, the foundation of understanding we had started to build grew stronger with each passing day. My relationship with my mom wasn't perfect, and I knew it never would be, but it was slowly becoming something more stable, something real. My wedding day, though, still a little overshadowed by everything that had happened leading up to it, had been a beautiful day. I had married the love of my life, surrounded by the people who meant the most to me, especially my grandparents, who had been so overjoyed to see me walk down the aisle. In those precious moments when my heart was full of joy, I tried to put aside all the negativity. I wanted to be in the moment, to bask in the happiness of marrying the person I had chosen to spend the rest of my life with. And yet, despite everything being perfect on the surface, there was still a part of me that couldn't forget the hurt from my mom's actions. It wasn't something I could easily brush aside, but I had learned over time that forgiveness wasn't about erasing the past. It was about finding peace with it and allowing myself to move forward, knowing that the past didn't define who I was or who I would become. As we moved into our new home, I began to understand more about the complexities of family. There were moments of joy, moments of frustration, and moments of deep reflection. I had always believed that love and understanding could heal anything, but I also realized that healing wasn't a linear process. It was messy, unpredictable, and at times painful, but it was worth it. Every step forward was worth it. One day, as I was unpacking boxes in the living room, I received a message from my mom. It was a simple message, just a few words. "How's the new house? How are you? I miss you." I paused, staring at the message. It had been a while since we'd had a deep conversation, and even longer since I had felt truly connected with her. I missed her too, despite everything. I missed the old days when we could talk about anything, when we didn't have to worry about all the misunderstandings and hurt. I quickly typed back, "It's great. We're settling in and it feels good. I miss you too, Mom." A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again, this time with a longer message. "I'm sorry for everything you know. I know I made things harder than they needed to be, and I didn't understand your choices. But I want you to know that I'm proud of you, and I want to be a part of your life in the way you need me to be. The words were simple, but they hit me in a way I hadn't expected. It wasn't the grand gesture I had wanted, but it was a step in the right direction. She was acknowledging her faults, something I had hoped for during those difficult months before the wedding. It wasn't everything, but it was something. And that something mattered. I sat down on the couch, my heart racing, as I thought about the words I wanted to send back. I wasn't ready to completely open up yet, but I knew it was time to take another step forward. Thank you, Mom. I appreciate it. I want us to move forward, too. It's been hard, but I think we're getting there. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. The weight that had been on my chest for so long wasn't completely gone, but it was lighter. I had learned that healing, especially in relationships as complex as family, wasn't a destination, it was a journey. And I was learning to embrace it step by step.